Shuckle season. What's up, everybody? It's Goomer22. I haven't done like a non draft league video in a while, but hopefully I'll get one or two more out. We'll see. But this was my Shuckle season. This is a post-team review on season 8 Nomax, as you can see here, VDL. Surprisingly, we actually ended up getting second this season. And to be honest, that far exceeded my goals. I mean, I know I've got to the finals before, and even won, but this season, I really, I mean, my focus was really just to try a bunch of goofy Pokemon that I hadn't tried in any draft leagues, and that I thought could be really fun in Nomax. I don't really think it was a very synergistic, like cohesive team per se, but I had a lot of fun, and I'm glad I tried some of these Pokemon because I was just really curious on how they performed. Some underperformed, some overperformed. I'll talk about that. And I'm really just excited to dive into it and talk about how I think my season went. First off, we had a really tough division. We had, let's see, KJ and the Arachnids. We had Otto, Batista with his Mono Ice team. We had Mismag, the Dragazolts. And yeah, we ended up clutching out first in our division and then squeaking by two rematches for Diamond Division in top 8 and semis, and then we got to face Panda in the finals, which was fun because I hadn't played Panda in Nomax before. But that being said, I think a lot of my matchups throughout the season, it was really tough to play. Well, let me just go over the team in general, I guess, right here. So the team in general, as you can see, it was a sand team with Hippo Dracovish, and then you have a little bit of a Trick Room mode, Rangaroo, Cursola, Pikachu's for Fake Out. Obviously, we've got the Shuckle. You've got that VDL never used list, and I wanted to pick out a couple Pokemon on that never used list and try them out. I don't know if Pikachu was on there. I know Shuckle was on there. I'm pretty sure Eldegoss was on there, so I really wanted to use them too, and then just fill out the rest of the team. So surprisingly, as you can see, the best performers was Hippo and Weezing. Weezing, I'm a little bit surprised about with that. That one shocked me. Hippo, I'm not surprised. Hippo is an absolute beast. And at tier 3, it was a great pick. I'll just go down the line though. So Cursola, I forget. I think Cursola might have been tier 4. Cursola is interestingly, it's kind of like Spectrier that I had last season. It base 145 special attack, ghost type, but it is obviously super slow, and it has actually really good special defense. Cursola there are so many cool things you can do with Cursola. I'm kind of upset I didn't utilize it more. I think part of the problem with Cursola is that my main way to get it up for Trick Room was a Rangaroo. And with a Rangaroo, people are going to want to bring their dark types. And so Cursola and a Rangaroo both really suffer against dark types. And so I think that just incentivized people to bring them even more. And I don't have a dark type, which means that's one less resist you have to worry about for dark types. So dark types were a big problem in general. So it was kind of hard to determine when to bring Cursola. So that was kind of tough. I do think the fact that dark type looked really good generally into my team. My bug type is Shuckle. So it's like, that's not going to do that much. And then Passimian is fighting, so that is a counter, so that was helpful. And then obviously you have Weezing for Fairy. So I think that was part of the reason why these two were able to shine a lot, because I think Dark just looked really good. Dark also can't be affected by Prankster, Tornadus, if I'm going for Leer or something like that, or even Scary Face. But I think that helped Weezing and Passimian shine for sure. So Cursola was tough. Cursola has a ton of move sets you can run, so I really liked Cursola. Dragovich, Dragovich is good. The problem was, one, my matchups really did not look good for Dragovich typically, and so and like Dragovich is going to be prepped for hard. So Dragovich is a tough one because of its coverage. So like if you compare Dragovich to something like my tier 1 and other seasons, Zapdos, right? So Zapdos did really well. Zapdos is flying and fighting and has Brave Bird and Close Combat. So 2 extremely strong 120 power stab moves. And you have Defiance, so you can't even lower its stats. So it's really tough to deal with Zapdos, right? You have to just kind of blow it up with offense. But it can always kind of perform in any matchup, You're facing something that's super effective against you. Like, let's say you're facing a Psychic type, well, you can use a flying move. Let's say you're facing a electric type, well, you can use a fighting move. So it's just like you always have neutral hits into other Pokemon, whereas you compare like a tier 1 like Dragovich. Now, Dragovich can just absolutely rock the house with Vicious Rend. But I faced a lot of bulky waters this season. I faced Slowbro. I faced Vaporeon. I faced Primarina and Finny. And those are specifically really tough because, again, you have that Fairy type, which can just blow up Dragovich. So it's really tough to position Dragovich. And the other thing that I realized is that Sand Rush is really not a great way to run Dragovich, at least in my opinion. It seemed like, just based on the calcs, like, if you think about it, you have Vicious Rend with Strong Jaw. You get a 1.5 boost. Now, with Vicious Rend, if you're going first, you get a 2 times boost. So a 2 times boost and a 1.5 boost, that's a 3 times boost. On top of Stab, which is another 1.5. Now, for Sand Rush, you only get that 2 times boost for going first. But the problem is if the opponent has a priority move, or if the opponent gets rid of Sand, now you don't have that 2 times boost. So you're just, regular Vicious Rend. It's not that strong. Whereas if you use Strong Jaw, if the opponent has priority, or if the opponent gets rid of Sand, now you still have that 1.5 boost. So, I mean, that's a big difference. I mean, that goes, you go from doing 66% to OHKOing things. So it's like, and Strong Jaw, the other thing with Sand Rush is you don't get boosts on any of the other types. So if you're facing a Mon with Water Absorb or a Mon where Vicious Rend is resisted, now you can run Crunch, you can run Psychic Fangs. You just have other options to hit those Pokemon with Strong Jaw. So Strong Jaw is almost always going to be the better move. So I think, like, obviously people have to prep for Sand Rush, so it is kind of nice to have like that immediate speed control sometimes. But in general, I think if you're picking Dragovich, you do not need a Sand user. And honestly, you might be tempted to bring Hippo, or like, think about the Sand users, right? You got Hippo, T-Tar, and Gigalith. All 3 of those are weak to water. And what's the best counter to Dragovich? A bulky water. So it's like, if you're going with a Sand mode, bulky waters are just really, really hard counter that mode in general. So and just waters in general. So it's like, it's really not worth it to invest so much into something that's countered so easily. And that was one of the tough parts with Dragovich is positioning it, finding a way to utilize it. You have Intimidators. And a decent amount of the Intimidators actually have priority moves like Fake Out, Hitmontop, Torracat, Ensign. So you've got Baby Doll Eyes, Stoutland. So like, that's another thing is you just, there's so much variance with getting that actual, like, moving before your target basically with Vicious Rend, is that investing in Sand Rush where you're only getting that boost from moving first is really tough to bank on being your main damage output. So that was one of the struggles with Dragovich. And typically I don't like to pick a Pokemon like Dragovich where it's just kind of all in power offense, but I don't know. Like, I think Arctozolt is a little bit different because Arctozolt has a lot of you can more reliably run special and physical, and it also has a little bit more. Like, Arctovich can set its own hail, which I kind of like, and it likes to operate in hail, makes Blizzards 100% accurate, gives you that speed boost, and it's not like you're going to run, you don't have something like Strongjaw to run. Whereas Dragovich, you really want to run Strongjaw. It doesn't even get Sandstorm, so you can't set your own sand. and it's harder to run special on it. I mean, obviously you get Draco Meteor and like Scald and Hydro Pump, but I think it has a little bit less special attack than Arctozolt. So, anyways, that was one of the struggles with Dracovish. Next up, we'll go Eldegoss. Eldegoss, I utilize it more later in the seasons, but Eldegoss is really good, and I wish I got to utilize it more. Cotton Down is... So, one thing about my team, well, I guess I'll go back to Dracovish real quick, is one struggle with my team, and this applies to Eldegoss too, is that some of my Pokemon were too limited in their coverage of moves that they can use. So, if you think about Dracovish mainly really wants to click Vicious Rend, and that's how it's going to be useful. If you're clicking Vicious Rend, Dracovish is going to be very useful on your team. If you're not clicking Vicious Rend with Dracovish, not to say it's a waste of a tier 1, but it's probably not doing as much as you want your tier 1 to do, and that's a big problem. So Dracovish is like, okay, I'm just using water moves. Eldegoss, not great coverage. It's only going to be using grass moves. So like grass types are kind of a good counter to Eldegoss, especially grass poison types, because a move like Pollen Puff won't be super effective into it. So Eldegoss really its coverage is grass, normal, and Pollen Puff, and so it's like you do really get hard countered by grass moves because you do have the powder moves, stun Spore, Poison Powder. You got Leech Seed, you've got Sleep Powder, but like grass types are not affected by any of that. So that's just really tough to use Eldegoss. But Eldegoss is a very defensive Pokemon, which I like, and you get Cotton Down, a unique ability, which Cotton Down can be so useful on the right team. And I think it would really be really good next to like something like a Metagross or something like honestly something like a Heatmore or a Centiskorch, something that can deal like where Eldegoss counters the water types that deal with those fires. I think that could be a really, really nice combo, or it could have been. But Eldegoss and Klinklang, the problem with having a clear body with a steel type is that they're both weak to fire, obviously. And that was another thing about my team in general is I did not have a fire type. So one, fire is a good resist to fire. So if you notice, like my only fire resist on my entire team is Dracovish. So that makes Heat Waves really spammable. Countering fire types is really tough. So that was annoying. And I think, yeah, and these two, Dracovish and Eldegoss, were my only water resists. And it's like, they're my only water resists, but it's like Dracovish doesn't even really want to go against water types. So it just makes it that much harder. So Eldegoss can have some really good stall sets. You get Cotton Guard and Cotton Spore. And so one thing I really like about Eldegoss is it kind of forces your opponents to target it. Like Eldegoss is a threat, right? So if you throw Eldegoss out there, and you have Cotton Spore, which lowers both of the opponent's targets by 2 times speed. Well, they have 2 options, right? They can taunt you. I guess taunt is a decent counter, but if they don't taunt you, if they try to attack you or fake you out, so you can't do that. Well, if they fake you out, it's lowering your opponent's speeds. If they don't fake you out and they don't target you, you get a Cotton Spore off, and now both their speeds are lowered harshly. So it's like Eldegoss has really, really good speed control options for that. Now, even if you protect or anything like that, like it's going to affect your teammate. So you need something like Clear Body or White Smoke or White Herb, ways to counter that. And so I thought that would be a nice way to get some speed control, throw in Dracovish in the back, and then be able to start Vicious Rending things. But I never really was able to position it like that. It was kind of tough. So next up, Hippo. I would say Hippo's an absolute beast. I mean, those defensive stats and offensive stats, like it can operate in Trick Room. It doesn't even necessarily need it, and it can tank hits. The fact that you get Amnesia, Iron Defense, and Slack Off is just gross. It has decent coverage with some Fang moves, Ice Fang, Thunder Fang, to hit flying types and rock moves. The only issue is like it is a pure ground type, so you do struggle against like you set the sand, but you don't get that special defense boost, which is kind of annoying. The other thing is these 3 are really weak to ice. My team in general is really weak to ice, but we'll go more on that later. But yeah, so Hippo is just an absolute beat. That's just really all I have to say. You can run stall sets. You can run a bulky offensive sets. If you go really fast, Hippo, and you go Tailwind, I mean, you can go Tailwind EQ, and you can outspeed 130s. I'm pretty sure. So Hippo is an extremely good Pokemon, and I think Hippo is potentially better. It's better without a Sand Rush user, in my opinion. It's probably better with a good rock type that can utilize its special defense. So honestly, it's probably good with like something like an Aerodactyl. Like that's I think the best way to use Hippo. And the reason being is the Sand Rush abusers are Dracovish, Arctozolt, or Dracovish, Arctozolt, not Arctozolt. Why do I keep saying that? Dracovish and Dragozolt, which I guess Dragozolt would be pretty decent with Hippo, even though they are both weak to ice. But the other ones are, let's see, Lycanroc. I guess Lycanroc wouldn't be horrible. And then Sandslash. And Sandslash is not great because they're both ground. They don't get the special defense boost. The reason why I think Hippo would be really good with something like Aerodactyl is you threaten that Tailwind DQ. Aerodactyl's getting that special defense boost. You are still weak to water. Maybe it's actually best with something like Credilli with Storm Drain. That's probably a really good way to use Hippo. They're both super defensive. Something like Credilli might be nice. But Aerodactyl, I'm just thinking of this on the fly. None of this is scripted. But Aerodactyl, you can throw off those rock slides to hit those ice types, to hit those. You have obviously flying types to hit the grass that's weak to Hippo, and then so you're really the only thing that is still kind of concerning is water types, which is why Credilli is probably the best answer there. But again, they're both still weak to ice. But Credilli can smack him with its rock type. So I don't think Hippo is actually good with a Sand Rush user. It's a little bit easier to prep against. But in general, I just think Hippo really shines with its move pool and with its stats. I think I think that showed itself throughout the season. Kling is, I think, way underutilized. I think people are really scared about gear grinds. I got pretty lucky in terms of gear grinds, in terms of hitting them. However, it's still not like people use 85, 90% moves all the time. I mean, I don't think I think I get hit with like 5 sleep powders throughout the season. I don't think somebody ever missed on me like a sleep powder, and that's 75% accurate. So it's like, I don't know. I feel like people have weird perceptions. I do this too sometimes, but people have weird perceptions about accuracy and moves. They'll click sleep powder, or they'll click something like even like Draco Meteor or Rock Slide, and kind of like bank on hitting them. And it's like, okay, 90% accurate. That's only 5% more accurate than Gear Grinds. But the thing I love about Gear Grind is it's unique, right? You get double hits so you can break sashes. Kling has great setup in Iron Defense and whatchamacallit? Iron Defense and Shift Gear. Shift Gear is a really cool move. You do get Trick Room on Kling, which I kind of wanted to utilize sometimes, but I just never did. So that's kind of unfortunate. So I do think Kling's cool in terms of a Trick Room user. But the problem with Kling, the main problem is coverage, right? So Kling pretty much gets Steel. It has Dark for Assurance, which isn't that strong, and then you get Electric. So with those typings, you're really weak to Ground and Steel. Steel are hard to bust through. Obviously, with Water, which resist Steel, you can use the Electric types or the Electric type moves like Wild Charge. But Kling's really limited in its coverage, and its move pool is it's pretty shallow. So that was one tough thing. So that's just one more Pokemon. Dracovish, Eldegoss. Dracovish is pretty much only using Water type moves. Eldegoss is only using Grass type moves. Kling pretty much only using Steel type moves. So it really makes prep pretty tough. So that was unfortunate, but overall, I think Kling is really, really useful. And because Gear Grind can miss, you have some other options, right? You can run Wide Lens, which isn't bad. Kling's already pretty fast. I ran Leftovers on it, and Leftovers was one thing is to protect. And once I set up that Iron Defense, it's like, okay, yeah, I can miss a Gear Grind, but I have time to hit these Gear Grinds. And that stall set I used against Panda, I mean, that definitely could have won me the game. And even the set, obviously barring no crits, or not even no crits, but barring crits at the right time. So like even that final game against Panda, if I had rested that last turn, I just mitigated one crit basically because it didn't even kill me. And then I just have to hit those. Over time, you get 24 PP. I can hit those gear grinds, and I just have to win it before time ends. And I think that was definitely possible. So stall sets on Kling Klang are not the worst because like over time you will hit those gear grinds. Sure, you might miss one or two, but it's like you have that longevity. So that was kind of ways that was ways that I planned on mitigating it. One thing I was really unfortunate that I never used with Kling Klang was Kling Klang Steel Roller with Wheezing Galar Misty Seed. Misty Seed's great with Kling Klang because you get a special defense boost and it already has naturally good defense. And then obviously Steel Roller 130 power, 100% accurate move. So that's one thing I really wish I did. And that could have been a nasty set. So unfortunate that I never got to use that, but really did struggle a little bit in terms of the coverage. Oranguru, I'm upset that I didn't use it more. I think the problem was my main Trick Room abuser was Cursola, and they're both just really weak to Dark, and that, I don't know, I think that kind of, it seemed like Dark was just good into my team in general, and so I didn't utilize it as much. I feel like it was, people were probably prepped for it with taunt and stuff. I love it. I love the fact that Oranguru is inner focus, and maybe I should have leaned on it more. Maybe that burned me, but just the fact that my Trick Room abusers were pretty much Cursola and Shuckle. Well, Hippo actually could have been a decent Trick Room abuser, but especially with like Telepathy Oranguru and Earthquake. But yeah, I didn't try that as much, so I don't know. I wish I used Oranguru more. I think Oranguru is an absolute beast, but the problem was like Oranguru, I was just like, oh, Oranguru is cool. I'll try it out. And honestly, the main reason I really wanted to try it was Instruct Rock Slide next to Shuckle. I think that was a hilarious way to use it, and it almost swept an entire game. I got me the win, but it almost swept an entire game doing that, and that would have been really funny. But that was the main reason I kind of wanted to use Oranguru. And so I got to do that at least. But overall, Oranguru is an absolute beast. Next up, we got Passimian. So Passimian was really good. I think Receiver. I kind of tried to theorize around Receiver, and it is kind of a weird like thing to think about and use effectively. I did get that contrary Shuckle game once, so that was pretty nice. In general, just having a Defiant Mon is pretty good. It was one way I tried to mitigate stuff with Dracovish. But I think Passimian is just really good. I mean, it's really good with AV or Scarf. I mean, that, in my opinion, just because it's got a little bit lower special defense. 80 speed is really good for Scarf, and you get U-turn. You get knockoff, which is kind of cool because you can go before the opponent, knock off their item. That way they can't do as much damage. And I think it gets really good coverage. I think one of the coolest things about Passimian in terms of other fighting types is that it gets Gunk Shot. Now, I never actually got to use that, I don't think, but being able to a fighting type that can deal with fairies that way is really nice. I mean, a lot of fighting types get like Iron Head or some sort of steel move, but Gunk Shot is the most powerful way to deal with them because it's 120 power. So that's one cool thing I think about Passimian in terms of like how it differentiates itself from other fighting types, especially other ones with Defiant. Pikachu is I think Pikachu can be really good. It obviously the stats make it look like it's not that great, and there are definitely some better picks out, but I think Pikachu can work, right? One thing I really liked about Pikachu is like the idea was like, okay, Light Ball Pikachu with Volt Tackle is disgustingly strong. 120 power move with I think it gets up to like it's over 200 attack. It's like 230 maybe. It's really high because you get double your attack with that Light Ball. So and using Lightning Rod next to Tornadus, so that could just be a really good combo, right? Pikachu gets a Fake Out off, Tornadus sets up Tailwind, and as long as the other Pokemon doesn't kill you, you can just get super strong Volt Tackles off. And Tornadus can use Leer to even lower their defenses further. So that was kind of one idea behind Pikachu. I just thought Lightning Rod support would be nice. I wanted Fake Out. I think you probably, obviously you can run Eviolite and you can tank some hits, but more than people think at least. But you want You probably want a little bit. You want either a little bit faster fake out or a little bit bulkier. So like when I had Persian that one season, it's like Persian's extremely fast fake out. It might be the second fastest fake out, I think, besides Weavile. But so that's one cool thing. Even though Persian's frail, you're extremely fast. And but like Pikachu with base 90, I feel like I was tying or underspeeding other fake out teams, which was kind of annoying. And then because you can't reliably use fake out then, or just having a bulkier fake out mon like Incineroar, right? That you can switch in, use fake out, or something like Hitmontop, where you switch it in, get an Intimidate, and then can fake out. So I think having a fake out mon that is good for switching is obviously going to be better. Switching around with Lightning Rod isn't the worst, but because my water type was already Dragon type and not resisted to electric, like you really don't have a great reason to use electric against my team. You know, I have the Hippo Dragovish mode. I have a Lightning Rod. I mean, the only reason to use electric is really just Torn, but so I don't think Lightning Rod was effective on this type of team, unfortunately. But overall, I think Pikachu can be pretty useful. You get Fake Out Feint, you get Nuzzle, you get some really good support moves. You know, it gets Electro Web, which is like semi unique on in terms of electric types. So I think Pikachu's decent. Probably performed as other people expected it. I was kind of hoping it would do a little bit more. Shuckle's awesome, but at the end of the day, Shuckle is a meme. That's just the reality of it. Shuckle is a meme, and there are some really cool sets you can do with Shuckle. And one thing that I'm really sad about that I never did was I thought Shuckle might pair decently with Dracovish for two reasons. One, Shuckle does get Sandstorm, so you can set Sand for Sand Rush. But then, like, this was preseason, right? So then during the season, I realized, okay, wait, Sand Rush Dracovish is really just not that great. I'm not, that's not going to be something I'll do. Another cool thing, though, I thought that Shuckle could do is sticky webs. Because, I mean, if you think about it, you set up sticky webs, and then you have a Dracovish in the back, right? So they have two Pokemon in the back that they're going to have to eventually switch in. If they don't switch out throughout the game, right? That's assuming no switches happen during the game. Well, that means both of their Pokemon in the back are going to be lowered speed by one stage. Dracovish, if you go max speed, you're pretty much outspeeding anything that's at -1. So if you set up the sticky webs right away, and Shuckle has 30, so you're going to have to double it or like taunt it or something. And even then, it's like pretty hard to take down, which is really cool. So if I had set up that sticky webs, you get Dracovish in the back, and Dracovish can now start wrecking things. A couple reasons. I guess that just never looked super good for my team. I don't know. I guess maybe Tailwind looked more reliable. But that was one thing I never really got to do. I do think Infestation sets are really cool to Shuckle. Shuckle, you can set up Stealth Rocks, obviously, which is kind of funny. And you do get Toxic. So like a stall sets with Shuckle, you get Contrary, and you can go Shell Smash and start boosting your defenses. Or you can just go really special defensive and go Iron Defense. So I think stall sets are going to be obviously better with Shuckle. That's like the best way to use it, I think. However, you can do some interesting stuff like with Struggle Bug. Struggle Bug and Infestation is just kind of annoying. It traps those opponents in having the lowered special attacks. So that's really annoying. But I mean, yeah, Shuckle's definitely tier 5 for a reason. And I'm glad I got to show it off a little bit and what it can do. I do think one cool thing, obviously with the power trick, it only swaps your attack and defense. So you still have that good special defense. And then with Hippo's Sand, your special defense is just that much stronger. So it is pretty hard to take down Shuckle from the special side. So if you do have a good matchup where the opponent has a lot of special attackers, Shuckle could be good with power trick. That was kind of why I utilized it that 1 week. But other than that, it is kind of hard to utilize Shuckle. I was kind of forcing it some matchups and stuff, but hey, I had fun. I really never expected anyone else to use Shuckle in draft. I don't know if I've ever seen anybody use it, to be honest. And so I was like, hey, I'm gonna be the one to do it. Let's try it out. Let's see what it can do. I'm glad I had some fun with it. Then we go down to Torn, and I always figured that I always know the genies are really good in draft, and Tornadus is no exception. And I think it might be a little bit better in Max. I don't know. I've never really had a consistent Tailwind user. This was the first season I did it, and I don't know how I feel about it. I don't know. Like, I don't mind having Tailwind as an option, but I don't love, like, especially with my team's speed tiers, my team's speed tiers were horrible. Tornadus was my only Pokemon over 100. Ideally, you have 3 Pokemon over 100, in my opinion, for draft. So ideally, you have at least 3 Pokemon over base 100. I had 1 that was Tornadus, and that's the one that's going to be setting up Tailwind. So it's like, I don't know. I just the speeds were kind of awkward for my team in general. But Torn just gets pretty good coverage, and also since I don't have a fire type, Torn became my effective fire type with Heat Wave. That was pretty much how I had to deal with some Pokemon. I mean, yeah, like you get Rain Dance for Dragovish, which is kind of cool, so I like that. You do get Leer, but and Defiant. So I thought it was a decent pairing with Dragovish in general. I don't think that's a bad pairing, because if you go Rain Dance or Tailwind, they're both going to help out like a strong draw version of Dragovish, and you don't need to worry about that Sand Rush. So I wanted multiple ways to use Dragovish, but I realized that like the threat of Sand is not as useful as just going a totally different direction and not worrying about Sand. Like you don't, I didn't need to focus on Sand as much, basically. But yeah, Torn overall super good coverage and some really cool movesets I think you can run with it. It's obviously going to be more offensive most of the time, but I think it did well in that way. It is kind of awkward though, because like without Max, like obviously Max Airstream's really good, but without Max, like the flying coverage does get tricky because you either run like an item that gets used up and run acrobatics for physical because you're not going to run fly. Or you run special and you go Air Slash, which isn't super powerful, or you go Hurricane, just go for big damage and just risk the misses. Obviously, you set up Rain Dance, that's nice because you can go with. Obviously, you set up Rain Dance, that's really nice because you can go with Hurricane, that's 100% accurate. But if you think about it, I have Dragovish, which can go Sand Rush or Strong Jaw and Tailwind. But like think about those Pokemon: Dragovish, Hippo, Torn. All 3 of them are super weak to freeze dry, and they all take neutral from ice. And my only ice resist is Kling. So my team in general just has a horrible matchup with ice, and that's mainly because of no fire type. And my faux fire type is a freaking flying type, so just absolutely awful. My rock type is Shuckle, and so that's not going to be doing too much damage. Passimian, obviously fighting type is nice to hit ice, but it doesn't resist it, which is so you can't really switch it in. And then Kling is my only really switch in. So that was one that was what I had to utilize. But and in general, kind of a theme throughout my team is like if you look at this team is like this team is extremely hard to pivot and play around just because the base stats are really not that high on this team, and especially on the defenses. So you got Eldegoss and Hippo have decent defenses. Kling does have good defense, but it has bad HP. And just in general, like this team, like you switch a Pokemon in, and it's like, what are you going to do then? So it's like this team felt extremely hard to pivot. I don't have Intimidate. My Fake Out user is going to be hard to switch in because you switch it in, and it's like Pikachu could just die in one hit. You know, it's pretty frail. So it's like, my Prankster user, that's another way to get momentum. You switch in like a Prankster user or something like that, and it's like, I don't know. It's just this team felt extremely hard to pivot around, which is more of a way I like to play, and so that also kind of caused me to struggle is figuring out a way to play it because I felt like this team was so extremely lead dependent. Like if I called the leads right, it could do extremely well. If I called the leads wrong, it was extremely hard to adjust, and it was kind of like just like a lost game at that point. So it felt really hard to adjust mid game. But with that, fine, we'll go to Weezing. And Weezing was an absolute star. I kind of thought Weezing was overpriced at tier 2, but now I realize that man, just the ability to run neutralizing gas is so good to just shut down other abilities. And I should have drafted Pokemon that either don't get affected by neutralizing gas like Ice Cube, or Pokemon that don't really need their abilities as much. I mean, some of these Pokemon don't need their abilities, but in general, they kind of like them. But I should have drafted Pokemon that really don't care about their abilities, and they are just going in and smacking things. Because with Dracovish, it's like you take away Strong Jaw. Okay, well now it's like not doing nearly as much damage. So it's like you just want to draft Pokemon with high attack stats and high damaging moves. High damaging base moves. So maybe something like and like a good dark type would be good. A good example might be like a Hydreigon, right? A dark type to deal with the psychics, and it just has Draco Meteor can run special, something like that. Would be better to run. And like Levitate, doesn't really care about Levitate that much, not really. So Pokemon like that I think would be good pairings with Weezing. With neutralizing gas, but again, you can run Levitate, and then you're only weak to Steel and Psychic. You get rid of that ground weakness, and you can run Misty Surge, which I don't even know if I ran throughout the season. Actually, did I run it once? I think I ran it once. Actually, but I think the access to Misty Surge is extremely good too. So that was kind of cool. But Weezing really had to cover for the fairies for Dracovish, because people like bring in their fairies. Obviously, it's a good way to deal with it. So had to do that. And then a lot of the teams I faced had really good abilities, so I had to shut those down, because otherwise, I felt like teams were able to get an initial speed advantage. And I don't know. I feel like my team really just never had the upfront pressure. I don't know why. I feel like I was always on the back foot and had to gain the momentum. I don't know. Maybe that wasn't how people thought about prepping against me, but that's how I felt prepping with the team. I was like, how do I generate upfront offense or momentum? Because it feels like, especially with my speed tiers and just the general base stats of these Pokemon, it was really hard to feel like I was pressuring them right off the bat. Unless I lead something like Torn Dracovish, but then it's like that's a pretty obvious lead, and people are probably prepped for that. So it's like, I don't know. It just made it really tough. But yeah, Weezing I think is extremely strong. Love the typing, and it really outperformed as a tier 2, considering what I was expecting it to do. So that was really nice. And I still thought I could have utilized it better. But in general, that was the team. That was my overview. Had a fun season, but I think in general, some of my Pokemon were overall, I think the base stats felt like they were kind of low with the team. Pokemon were kind of siloed into their typings. Dracovish using water, Eldegoss using grass, Kling using steel, Pikachu using electric, and then Shuckle using kind of like nothing, as like no offensive damage threat. So Pokemon were kind of siloed into their types, and it was hard to generate offense in those respects. So that was kind of where the team struggled, but I thought I was able to create some creative sets and matchups throughout the season with it, and we clutched it out with some decent prep and some good RNG. So glad to have played, had some fun, and hope you guys all enjoyed. So that's gonna do it for me. Peace.